as an amendment at this time.
We have an amendment by Mr. Boudreau. We have a second by Councilman Conk. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, any public comment? And again, you can speak twice. You can speak in relation to the amendment or if the ordinance as amended.
The 70 million.
Which amendment are you first one or the second?
We'll get two
Take them
separate
one at a
amendments, so we take it one at a time.
And the last one that was made was the $70 million. So
And that was
we
motion
do
by-
have 3 speakers, and we would like to see if they would like to speak to the $70 million amendment. Andy Abear? He'll wait. Michael Walden? Wait. And Kim Goodell? And she'll wait. So we
Okay.
can go to the vote.
Okay, well, let's go to the vote on the first amendment or the second, which one?
The first amendment, the 70 million, reducing the 240 million to 70 million.
Okay,
District 7,
Yes.
District 9, District 1,
yes.
2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5,
Yes.
District 6. Yes. Motion to amend is approved.
Okay. Now,
The next amendment on the floor is with reference to sections 5 and 6 with reference to bond counsel and underwriter. And that amendment is on the floor now. We would check with the citizens. Andy Abear, would you like to speak to that amendment? He'll pass. Michael Walden? Kim Goodell? And Choi.
okay, please call the vote on the amendment.
District 7,
Yes.
District 9, District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3, District 4, District 5, District 6. Yes. Motion to amend is approved.
Okay. Now we'll go ahead and go to the blue cards.
First speaker, Andy Abear.
I wasn't going to speak on this one, but, you know, when you go from $240 million request to $70 million, it kind of makes you wonder, you know, are you willing to write just blank checks like that? I mean, request-wise, without specific data. And I think some of the previous speakers at the council meeting had asked that question at the LPUA meeting. And they asked that question is, what is the money to be spent for, especially $240 million? And I don't know if the citizens of the City of Lafayette realize that LUS is owned by the City of Lafayette, and therefore all the bonds that you sell, if there's any default in those bonds, the money is owed by the City of Lafayette, the property owners. They're the ones who owe that money, just like in the fiber to the home process. So it's interesting that as owners of the utility system, we still don't get representation equally. Bruce, you represent 100% of the City of Lafayette utility owners, and Mr. Williams, you only own 6%. It's higher than that? Okay, a little bit higher than that, 9%? Okay, well, it's not 100 yet, but what's interesting is, I like reading your documents, and pardon me, I have to wear glasses now. I've read several of them. There was a question as to the governing authority of LUS. And in your charter, it says real clearly, I mean, if I understand English, it says section 4-07, Utilities Department, A, the governing authority of the Utilities Department shall be the Lafayette Public Utility Authority, period. So if they're the governing authority and vote on everything, why are you doing that? If they're the governing authority, they should have the authority to say it, do it, and walk off. So I wonder, why would you be doing it? Cover your bases. That's what you're doing. You see, because there's 9,000 of those city owners that are not represented on the LPUA board. Now, how can someone indebt somebody and not have representation in that body, especially equal representation in that body? So that is the big question about is, shouldn't all of y'all have equal city residents in each of your districts? Then you wouldn't need to have an LPUA board, because y'all all would represent us equally. Because y'all are, the LPUA board, utility board, is the public service commissioners for a public utility. So if those 9,000 customers have a question about their rate structure or their utility rates, who do they complain to? They have no representation. They can't complain about the in lieu of tax, which I remember that lawsuit. You remember the lawsuit somebody filed on the in lieu of tax, commercial customer? I'm thinking he's going to win that because in your rate structure it says tax addition, and I know he's going to win it, so how are you going to pay it? Well, you got bond money. That's another way. So it's going to be interesting to see how that falls out. But again, as LUS customers, I wonder why we don't have equal representation on this board. You're getting our properties in debt, and yet we don't have equal representation? I don't think that's fair, but I think your charter clearly states the LPUA shall be the governing authority of the utility department of the City of Lafayette, period. Y'all don't need to be wasting our time doing these second meetings on the second ordinances. You're just wasting time and paying attorney's fees. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next speaker, Michael Walden.
Hello again for the last time tonight. I'm Michael Walden. I live at 110 Seville Boulevard in Lafayette. I'm here to speak against this resolution. When you look at it, it's $70 million now. If you borrow $70 million at 6% for 30 years, you're going to be spending $5 million a year for 30 years paying it off. Plus, you've got to pay the insurance and you got to pay the fees for the people that manage it. That's a huge debt to be laying on the future ratepayers in this city. That's just a huge amount of money to be putting on us. That is wrong to do until you have a listing of what these projects are that are going to be done. If you plan to build something that's going to last for 30 years, I'll say, fine. It's appropriate to borrow money for 30 years to build that. If you're going to fix broken pipes like we heard at the LPUA meeting, that is not appropriate to borrow money for. That is just poor money management. Now, we don't know what the money is going to be used for. Nobody's been told, nobody's been given a list. The citizens don't get the privilege to know. You're here voting to spend $70 million of the ratepayers' money for who knows what. We just trust the management. Okay, I have great respect for the management at LUS, but all the respect that I have, I want to know. When I hire a money manager to take care of my money, I don't say, well, just do whatever. I ask to have some information before he does things. You need to do that too. You need to be the fiduciary managers for us, because we as citizens, all we can do is come and ask you to do that. Thank you, and I hope you vote against this. At least table it till we have a list of what they plan to spend the money on.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Terrio.
Mr. Huval, if you don't mind, sir, could you come up? because I think there are some questions there that he posed. I'm sure you would like to answer. First, he says, as for the amount here, the 70 million, who knows whatever this is going to be used for? Could you elaborate on that, please?
Okay, well, to start off with, the purpose of this resolution is for the council to give us the authority for us to go to the State Bond Commission, for them to give us the authority to be able to move forward with coming back to this council again to get the authority to move forward and to borrow this money. So because the City of Lafayette is a subdivision of the state of Louisiana, there is a structure in place that any time a local government wants to borrow money, it has to go to the State Bond Commission to get that initial authorization, so that now we can come back home and now we can go to our body here in Lafayette, which is the LPUA and the council, to be able to make our pitch as to why we need to move forward with borrowing money to be able to build new assets. So that's what this was to begin with. I did not, in the past, when we've gone through these types of resolutions, the discussion is, hey, look, we have a 5-year capital plan that's approved by the council. It's all laid out as to what our plans are, and that we're going to be coming back again to the council on an ordinance perspective. So there'll be a vote for intro and a vote for final adoption on the specific projects and the specific amount of money we're going to get that we're going to be asking for. As it turns out, in this discussion here, because we asked for $240 million, there was a concern about certainly the amount of money that was involved. It was meant to be over multiple bond issues down the road. We just wanted to have, again, the authorization to go to the state. So that was the first thing. The second question is, the list of projects. Again, that's all part of the presentations I give you guys during the budget session. I go through all the major projects that we had. I did not prepare at the LPUA to have all that level of detailed discussion because, again, the way that we normally approach this authorization for going to the bond commission. So what I did in the meantime is I kind of went through some of the projects that we have going forward, some of the big ones that we have. The South Sewer Plant. The South Sewer Plant is located on Bayou. What's the name of the road? West Bayou Parkway. Thank you, boss. On West Bayou Parkway, and we're having to make major increases in sewer capacity there because the sewer plant that we have that's having the biggest growth take place is the one on Ambassador Caffrey. In Ambassador Caffrey, we're landlocked. We have no more property to build additional sewer treatment facilities, and you have to build these facilities along the Vermilion River. So there's not a lot of property that's available in the City of Lafayette where you could put a sewer plant. So what we did, realizing that some 15, 20 years ago, is we bought properties that became available on West Bayou Parkway adjacent to the plant. And with the game plan being to start to put more capacity there, move some of the flows that was going to the Ambassador Caffrey plant to the West Bayou Parkway plant, and therefore relieving that capacity at Ambassador Caffrey to handle more load and more growth. That project alone is going to cost us $27 million. Okay, part of it, it's underway now, and it's going to cost us $27 million over the next 3 years to get that project complete. And that includes just a lot of components associated with that. On the electric side, we're looking at building the substation on the northeast part of town, somewhere around the Louisiana Avenue I-10 area. That part of town is served by one substation that's located near the Turling's football field that serves everything from the north of I-10 and Louisiana Avenue all the way down to the Vermilion River terminal subdivision I talked about earlier on that. River Oaks and West Oak Barn Country Club, that's right, in that particular area. So I'm telling you, that is a long area to serve, and here's the issues that you have. We've had outages there that affect a lot of customers when that takes place. And so recognizing the growth, recognizing the exposure that we have, we're building another substation there. When you build a substation, you got to connect that substation with all the rest of the substations that you have. I got to build transmission lines from that substation to connect up with the rest of the grid. That project alone is about $26 million. We're looking at building over the next 3 years. So of two projects, the sewer plant and the electric is, you know, we're talking about 27 plus 26, $53 million of the money that we're discussing.
Let's do this, and Mr. Huval, I don't want to drag this out. We understand that you have the need for it, and when you come back to the council with the ordinances after this approval has moved forward, you will have that additional information also again at that time.
That's right, but it's just an indicative of
Right.
what we're dealing with.
Right.
These are
So
very large projects that have large sums of money
Everything,
associated with
but
them.
you do have a
And-
plan set
yeah.
forward. Most of it is already in progress, like you mentioned, the sewer plant next to the one on Bayou Parkway, the expansion of that.
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that the public knows there is a defined plan and how the money's going to be used.
Yes, sir.
So that's all I have for now. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Next speaker?
Kim Goodell. And while she's approaching, we did have one citizen who does not wish to speak, who signed in opposition to the resolution.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I was here earlier when the resolution was presented to the public in the, at the LPUA council meeting. I didn't plan to speak on this item because I knew Simon Mahan was here. And I knew Simon Mahan is very informed on the subject matter and these issues. And I know that he's paying attention. I think it's unfortunate that Simon could not stay for this council meeting to reiterate some of the things that he had to say and see this resolution through the whole process. However, I do feel like there were a couple of things that he touched on that would be important for the public, be important for the council, and really follow up to the question that Mr. Terrio had, you know, what else is there in the process? That Mr. Yuval did explain that he would be coming back. So that cleared up a little bit of the concern that I think the public had with this particular resolution. But again, it's unfortunate that Simon wasn't here. He did a great job bringing into focus the problem. He did a good job representing the public that you serve. He said that the resolution did not pass the smell test. At issue was the extraordinary sum that you were asking for, the limit to borrow $240 million. And further, you weren't offering any specifics regarding projects, much less supportive documentation that you would expect to be furnished with an amount like this. The council decided with not too much prodding to quickly drop the 240 to 70 million. We were happy with that, but at the same time, it brings, you know, it just raises more questions and regarding transparency. Mr. Boudreau agreed that it was not transparent, and he vowed for the rest of his term to endeavor to be transparent. It's your duty to be transparent from the get-go. And, you know, the council's here, the public's here, they're informed, they're engaged, they want to know. And I would think that that would help you all carry out your responsibilities to the public. So the council talked for a little while about whether or not to reduce it to 70 million or 80 million. And then Mayor Robideau asked the city attorney if they did approve the 70 million now, when the resolution comes back in this meeting, will we be starting off at 240 or 70? What kind of questions would ensue again? So Simon and Mike Walden both asked that you table the resolution at that standpoint, that it looks really bad for the public. To us, the bigger question in our mind, rather than 70 or 80 million, is how can you go from asking for 240 million to quickly drop it to 70 million, just because a member of the public asked a question about it and questioned it. What if we're not here? What if we're not paying attention? If you're interested in establishing public trust and restoring a bit of the credibility, you'd offer more explanation. I think Mr. Terrio's question brought out some of that explanation, but I just feel like the public deserves more, and the public deserves better. And I just urge the public that is here now, if you weren't here earlier, watch the rerun and ask your councilman to please explain what happened, what transpired. Let's not keep going and pretending it didn't happen. It wasn't transparent earlier, and there was a huge change that you made, going from 240 to 70.
Thank you very much. Mr. Boudreaux, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. So to be accurately quoted, what I said was that our transparency could be better. It's not that it didn't exist. And yet again, there are limitations in Government 101. There are just limitations, unfortunately, to what our public has allowed. I remember when I discovered the fact that the city of New Orleans had full-time council members and their salaries and their staff sizes, and I laughed probably for about 2 weeks, because I said if we was to even consider that in Lafayette, we'd probably get shot. And yet we manage more money than the city of New Orleans because we have our own utility system. So, again, this process, and when people talk about transparency and step up to this mic and be critical of us and our duties, people just don't recognize that most of the people here who's fortunate have jobs during the day and they run for public office to serve. They're considered part-time. So the way this process works is that we have a full-time administration who can be approached at any time. The departments can be approached at any time, and you should have success there. So when you talk about a drop from 240 to 70, it had nothing to do with anybody come and speak to that mic, because I had determined I was going to make that recommendation before I arrived here today, because when we receive our packets, we start to review them and determine the who, what, when, whys, and hows. But because we're part-time council members and we don't engage the public all day long, the opportunity to go and express to the public that this is what I'm considering doing and this is how I'm going to do it, unfortunately, the meeting is the place where that happens, but it wasn't because anybody came here and said anything. And this is our process, because if people are going to be critical and I guess, because they see that significant drop, that drop is because when you have an administrative form of government who makes recommendations, you have a legislative form of government that has to approve those. That's your check and your balance. So in this instant, it was a pretty good process, because there was an asking for one thing, which was the appropriate thing to do based on their forecasts and how they wanted to manage and how they wanted this process to work. And then first LPUA and now council is considering saying, yes, that's your way of doing it, but this is another way of doing it that we may even think will produce better results and provide for greater comfort. So what I'm going to end with, since Simon was referenced so much, he inboxed me on Facebook. We must have done something right. We couldn't have done everything wrong, because Simon says, I appreciate you, Kenneth. Thank you so much for everything that you do. I mean, there's a process, and there's a cost associated with everything. And transparency can be afforded. A New Orleans City Council member gets $87,000 a year. They each got a staff of 6 people. We don't want that. That's ridiculous. We don't really need that. But that's our form of government. It is what it is. Sometimes come with some recommendations when you ask for more, when you want more. Bring more with you. Bring more with you. That's my challenge. Tell us how we generate more. These are the meetings, they've been the meetings. They're gonna be the meetings. This is where you voice your concerns. We heard some things. That reduction was because of the things that we heard during the budget process. So to come in now and still imply that no one's listening, that don't even add up. That's why I took the position I took. I'm not gonna speak for no one else. My position was based on the fact that there was some concerns expressed about how much is said, how much people know what we do. This process doesn't do anything. Mr. Huval identified two of a few projects that he said, this is what I could do in 3 years. I just suggested that we do it differently. Earlier, we had a majority to agree on that. We'll see what happens now, and that's gonna be the law, period. There's no back door, no shadiness, no hiding out. You know, them implications are insulting. Got some folks make a lot of sacrifices sitting here and work very hard, by the way. And I don't know if I heard anybody step up to the mic today and made it seem like we do anything right around here. We got awards for budgeting, but we don't know how to manage money. Sometimes we are our own worst enemies.
Any other council discussion? Any other blue card speakers?
No, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Boudreau. Please call the vote.
District
On the ordinance as amended.
Yes, correct. Resolution is.
I got it now.
District 7?
Yes.
9? Yes. District 1?
Yes.
District 2?
Yes.
District 3? District 4? Yes. District 5?
Yes.
District 6?
Yes.
Motion is approved to adopt as amended.
All right, thank you very much. We're gonna move to reports and our discussions. Jeremy, can you please read?
Acadiana Planning Commission, update on the watershed initiative.
Okay. All right. You have 5 minutes. No.
Okay.
You got it, 7. I'll give you 7.
First, I want to thank y'all for all that you do. Seriously, we do a lot of work, and we reach out and get a lot of support from you, so thank you. All of you, including Kenneth.
Okay, now you're down to 4 minutes. I mean, I'm gonna start getting on my soapbox and get some recognition.
I'm Monique Boulay, the CEO of the Acadiana Planning Commission, and we were originally going to come tonight. We are starting this week, the next 2.5 months, going to 7 parish councils and 6 or 7 city councils to go through the work we do and the impacts we have in each of those areas. But we were asked to focus tonight on watershed. So we will come back at the end of our 2.5 month schedule and give you an update on that. But we were putting that together earlier, and I was actually very surprised how much we really do in Lafayette. So I look forward to that. On the watershed update, as many of you know, the board met last week and selected projects, and I'll briefly go through the process. After the 2016 floods, the parish presidents of Acadia, Evangeline, Iberia, Lafayette, St. Landry, St. Martin, and Vermilion got together and asked the governor to look at this region from our watershed perspective and allocate the mitigating dollars in that way, simply because, as many of you have said so many times, it's cliche, but it's so real that water does not know political boundaries. And so the governor did, the state agencies, the federal agencies, the governor's office, they were very excited with the collaboration happening, and he did award the region approximately $25 million in projects. And so we went through a very long process with some outreach meetings throughout the region. And then we asked each parish to send a technical person, a public works person, some sent engineers, and we backed some of the private engineers off because they would not be able to then procure projects. And we put together a project evaluation committee that vetted the projects from several different perspectives, put a recommendation to the board, and then the board met and really looking at regional impacts and project readiness. We had several different factors that the board considered and then put forth a list of projects. In that list, Lafayette, in the Lafayette Parish proper, there were $11.2 million of projects awarded. I wanted to touch on some of the other projects on that list so that you understand what our objectives were. One of them, the first one, is the Iberia Bayou Park Purdue Regional Detention and Improvements in Lake Panor project. That project started with a meeting of Youngsville, Vermilion Parish, and Iberia Parish, and they sat down and looked. There's a big silt plug in Lake Panor, and together they really had a conversation of the impacts there. And they ended up each putting forth a different piece of that project, and to get it's an expense. Each piece was expensive. So the Iberia piece, which actually deals with the silted plug, was funded, but it has reaching out impacts into Lafayette Parish. Another one I wanted to highlight was the Highway 14 bypass, which is actually a road project. In the floods of August 2016, the bridge by State Street in Abbeville was log jammed with debris, with docks and trees, and on one side of it sat a lot of debris. On the other side, the water was 2 feet lower. So the implications of that upstream, where we are, probably was holding more water than it should have. So this project, and what happened is DOTD couldn't raise that because that was the only way to get supplies in or people out if there was an evacuation needed. So DOTD left that bridge in place, holding water back. What we're going to do is raise the bypass highway so that then they can have an evacuation route and DOTD can raise that bridge. That has implications all the way upstream, all the way up the Vermilion River. So those are just two I wanted to highlight. I'm going to introduce Rachel Gudo. If you have any questions in particular on the Lafayette projects or any questions on the process.
Okay, this is something I was going to be putting in a request through the administration on. So this is what has happened for Lafayette purpose. Obviously, drainage has been the #1 most important issue for everybody. And the mayor president came up with some really creative ideas to generate some money. You all pursued some ideas which got this other pool of money, and there's a lot of goals going forward. And then there is all of the stuff that's been around that could never be done because there was never any money to do it. Projects that have been sitting. We talked a lot about capital today, but even in a public works, there's a capital. So for me, my efforts has been just to make sure that we're still doing the best we can with what we have. I think in both instances, we're looking at some really, 500,000 viewpoint type opportunities here. So what I'm going to be asking for is not quite at that height, but it is a part of this plan. And I just want to be able to make sure, I think we need to be able to answer the questions. So I'm going to give you an example of something, not to take up too much time here, but this is an example I would like to share, and then I would like our teams to somehow, some way address these, because there's a few of them throughout this process. So on your 2 of 3 sheet, and I'm not asking for anything to change. Let me be clear. I don't want nobody to get worked up. I'm just giving an example of identifying something so the teams could make sure we're doing the best. On your 2 of 3 sheet, that third highlighted project, the Cooley Elder Cons lateral L8C regional detention. there's an allocation that's on your radar, you're doing something with that. If we go to our program, project reference number A16, that same coulee, that same lateral, we have a project in it as well, and it's in our A program. So scheduled to get funded. What I'm asking for the teams to get together on is to see who's doing what work, make sure there's no duplication there. And what I spoke to the mayor president about as a sidebar is that if you all are doing something of such magnitude that is going to provide the relief, that gives him the opportunity to start going down into B, C, like he has committed to as it relates to if something is going to take too much to get engineering, take too long with core. If we run into any problems, he don't want to sit on 9. He wants to get
Right.
that working. But I look at that. That's one. So when you all release your projects, whether they were scheduled to get, whether they were either both scheduled to receive funding, meaning they were in our A and they were in your list, or in one or two cases, you had something in waiting, like,
Can I bring your
Park
attention to
Purdue.
something? Sorry. Can I bring your attention to something really quick? So these projects that are on the list, we're not technically the applicant, and we won't be managing the project from here on out. So Scott, the city of Scott, for that particular project will actually be the applicant, and they will be managing the project from here on out. So we're definitely going to be involved as far as transparency and ensuring that the process is moving. But as far as the coordination and implementation or construction of the project, that will be in the hands of the city of Scott.
right, I get that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's, you still have a part to play.
Right.
Scott has a part to play. Public Works has a part to play. And what that will do is not who manages or builds this project. Once our team gets a clear understanding of what's gonna happen, the $200,000 that we got in our program to do something may or may not still be necessary, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
So it's not so much about who is the ultimate manager. I was just using that one as an example, but we have a few of them on our list. And that's why I open up by saying, we got this program that we're deploying.
Yeah.
You have a program that you have secured and others will deploy, these respective jurisdictions, and then we have our ongoing program. When you heard something mentioned earlier, we have some things that maybe could be looked at.
Right.
And at the end of the day, I think what's gonna happen is an opportunity that money may be able to be moved or repurposed because they say, oh, wait a minute, the planning commission is doing this, and we're doing that, and this may not be necessary anymore, so what's the next project on the list?
Right.
That's all.
So
Right there.
two things. I believe, and Mark Dubrock may be able to speak better to that, but I believe there's a portion that the parish is paying for, and then this project is the next portion. This was submitted as a larger project, and this was one of the alternatives within that project. So it's a portion of the total project. For
So-
that one in
Right,
particular.
that's
Right.
what we need
Yeah.
to be able to speak to it. If-
And he, your Public Works Director was also, is at the table with this in the technical vetting. The other thing is the third page is that list of alternative projects.
Mm-hmm.
If one gets bumped, because all of these projects have to go through a very arduous HMGP process, application process. And they have to jump through, 150 hoops. And if one falls out, we want to be ready. So we did the next $11 million.
And I know the conversation is a little robust, but I wasn't talking about your alternative projects. We have a B and a C list on our side. And what I'm saying is, but you have a standby that's on our A list. Now, it may not be the full scope of work.
Right.
We don't know that. Mark may know that. That's why I'm saying the teams get together and make us aware of what that looks like, because when I see the same named project benefiting from your funds, our funds, and in our capital, I'm saying, wait a minute, what's going on here? You see what I'm saying?
I'm
So
with
yeah, it's
you.
not your standby, it's our standby.
Okay.
So, and that's why I'm asking, and we could follow up on that. The team's gonna have to reassemble. If y'all might already have it for all I know, but if you compare the list that was submitted by Lafayette Consolidated Government for our $9 million allocation
Right.
to your list of your 11 million in Lafayette Parish, there's duplication on work to be done in certain channels and laterals. It may not be the same work. It may be, I don't know. If it is, once you show me that, well, then it's a no-brainer.
Okay.
Okay? So I just wanted to do that now since you asked for questions, because that's how we study in the list.
I will say our next steps, we're working with the state. The governor has expressed interest in helping us fund a region-wide model. And when I say that, I'm talking about the Tesh, the Vermilion, and the Mermentau, and potentially the interaction with the basin. And we're looking at building a tributary model, not just the riverine, but an entire watershed model. And that's where that first project, the Gauge project, sets out data points throughout our bayous and the tributaries that feed into our rivers. And so it's waiting on federal funding. But we are pursuing that really quick, because I'm going to be very honest with you. We don't have the region-wide impacts on any one of these projects, because we don't have models big enough that really factor in what's happening in Vermilion Parish when we do something in Lafayette Parish, or, so we want that model. We want to test these projects. We want it for you guys to have at your access as you do future planning. It will take some time. We have several factors falling into place, though. DOTD currently is flying new LiDAR for the region, and it's the LQ1, the high-quality LiDAR. So we will have some really good data, some really good information to use. It will take a couple of years. I would have liked to have that before we did all of this, but FEMA deadlines came very quick, and they wanted projects. And this, I do think, represents a really solid group of projects that that will do some good. There's a lot of repetitive homes factored in these projects. There's a lot factored into what went into this. And so if you have any questions tonight, we're here. And if you have questions later, just pick up the phone and call us, anywhere along the process, by all means.
Okay. Mr. Boudreaux, you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, thank you so much. And just to let you know, Mr. Terrio, myself, and there was other council members that we did go to the South Library. It wasn't, I don't think Mr. Kennan was there that night, but.
You might be right.
I'm
I
just
don't think I
picking,
saw him.
everybody giving credit for Mr. Boudreaux. I just want to let you know who else was there, I'm just picking what you did. Thank you so much.
I did see you that night. You were,
Okay,
you
yeah.
were, I think, on about the 5th row.
Yeah, I was getting attacked by Bruce's people. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And please keep us informed and up to date on any changes or any new information that you have in regards to the projects.
They'll probably schedule maybe back in April
About April, okay.
for all of the projects.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for sticking around. All right, moving next. Gentlemen, can you read?
Update on the Parish General Fund.
That should be pretty short. Mr.
And I have every
Briscoe?
intention to be very brief. I wanted to initiate a quarterly report on the status of our general fund balance, judging from the fact that we started out with a very limited amount of money, about $99,000. But in a conversation earlier this evening with Ms. Toops, I was informed that at this point she's not capable of giving us an exact amount pending the final audit, which will be available hopefully by the next quarter. But what concerns me is the information that we've heard several times tonight and that you had confirmed earlier, is that revenues are down. Could you give us a little bit of detail on that?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I have a couple of highlights that I'd like to mention, and I'll be real brief. We are in the middle of our audit, so I can't give you an exact ending fund balance for last year from the Parish General Fund. But we know from previous budgets for the past few years that if you go back and look in the budget message, you'll see where I reiterate over and over that we either need to find additional revenue sources or reduction in expenditures for the Parish General Fund to continue in the future to fund the mandates of the Parish General Fund. Right now, I can't give you the beginning fund balance because, as you know, the Parish General Fund subsidizes several other funds, the War Memorial Fund, the Coroner Fund, and the Court Services Fund. That, along with the general fund, is all under audit, so when the audit's finished, we'll be able to get an update on that fund balance. I am alarmed at some of the decreases in revenues and also some of the cash flow problems that I had at the beginning of this fiscal year. We had several shortfalls. We had property tax bills that went out late, so property tax collections were coming in very slow. We have several large payments that we have traditionally written checks for in November of the fiscal year. Volunteer fire departments, we normally write them a one-time check in November. The county agent would normally get a one-time check in November. Well, all these really placed a lot of stress on cash flow for the parish general fund. So what we are working on and what you will see as we enter into new intergovernmental agreements with these agencies is you'll see probably quarterly payments in order to stretch out the cash flow and not have all that cash flowing out of the parish general fund in November prior to us receiving property tax collections. Speaking of property tax collections, when we entered into the budget process, we estimated a 2% increase in the assessed valuation for the parish property taxes. By the time we got the assessor's final numbers, it was only a 0.8% increase. We haven't seen that low of an increase in assessed valuations for probably the past 8 years. What that means is that we ended up over budgeting property taxes in the parish general fund. We know that property taxes in the parish general fund are going to come in about $63,000 less than what we budgeted. At some point, we will be coming to you with a budget amendment to lower that revenue number, but we're going to wait to see how the rest of the collections come in for the next couple of months. The most alarming thing that I'm seeing right now is with sales taxes. And if you look in your folder, you will see a graph of sales tax collections for the first 3 months of this fiscal year. I've gone back and compared that to the last 4 fiscal years. The high was fiscal year 14-15. In 14-15, the first 3 months of the fiscal year, November through January, which covered our Christmas and holiday sales, the parish general fund had collected $1.7 million in those 3 months in sales taxes. For this current fiscal year 17-18, we have collected $945,000. That is a substantial decrease from fiscal year 14-15. Now, we saw that decrease over the past couple years, and we did budget for a decrease in sales tax collections, but this is a little bit more than what we budgeted for. So we are going to have to address that. We're going to need to see what our beginning fund balance is after the audit is completed, because this alone, if we end up with $99,000 at the end of this fiscal year, with these revenue decreases, we would end up with a negative fund balance, which, you know, we're not allowed to do. So I'm very concerned about the revenue collections. The property tax collection, we know, is going to be that around that $63,000, $64,000 mark. But I urge you to look at this graph and see the decrease that we've had for the first 3 months. The graph is in your folder. And if you have any questions, or if there's anything in particular you would like me to highlight, as Mr. Conk has requested these quarterly updates, this is the first one. I wasn't sure what areas to hit. Please let me know. I appreciate your feedback, and I'll be happy to give you any other information that you'd like me to update.
Thank you, Ms. Toops. That's it, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Combs. All right. Moving on to ordinances for final adoption. Jeremy, can you please read?
Ordinance 20, 2018, an ordinance of the Lafayette City-Parish Council amending the fiscal year 17-18 capital budget of the Lafayette City-Parish Consolidated Government by transferring $38,549 from capital work orders within the Lafayette Fire Department and appropriating to tools and equipment for additional funding needed.
Got a motion by Councilman Castile and a second by Councilman Lewis. Not seeing any council discussion at this time. Any public comment? All right, please call the roll. Wait, hold on a second. We got an error. You read item number 21 and the screen shows 16, that's correct? Per the, and Chief Benoit had to leave, so at this time, we can just refer back to item 16, or do you want us to go ahead and take the vote on?
He's read item 21.
Okay.
Had a motion and a second.
So for the audience and people watching, the item that you see, item 16 is not accurate. We actually have called out item number 21, and you just now corrected it, so.
All right, and we have a motion and a second.
Motion by Councilman Castillo, second by Councilman Lewis. Any public comment, anything? Okay, let's call the roll on 21, we'll revert back to 16.
District 9? District 1?
Yes.
District 2?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
District 5? Yes. District 6?
Yes.
District 7? Yes. Motion to adopt is approved.
Okay, now revert back to 16.
Ordinance 15,
You said it right, ordinance 15, 2018.
waiting for the slide to match.
Oh. You got a V. All
Ordinance
right.
15, 2018, an ordinance of the Lafayette City-Parish Council declaring the building or structure located at 908 East Vermilion Street, Lafayette, Louisiana, owned by Mitch and Mia Investment Properties, LLC, authorized members, Mitch Barra and Mia Quibido Barra, care of Gerald J. Block, attorney appointed, to be dilapidated and dangerous to the public welfare and ordering the condemnation of same.
Right, got a motion by Councilman Boudreaux, need a second? Second by Councilman Castillo from the cheap seats. Any council discussion? Seeing none, any public comment?
No, sir.
All right, please call the roll.
District 1,
Yes.
District 2,
Yes.
District 3,
Yes.
District 4,
Yes.
District 5, District 6,
Yes.
District 7, District 9. Motion to adopt is approved. Ordinance 16, 2018, an ordinance of the Lafayette City-Parish Council amending the Unified Development Code so as to reclassify the properties of River Ranch Development LLC, case number ZON 2018-1, 900 block of Camellia Boulevard and 712 Elysian Fields Drive rezoning, located generally northeast of Camellia Boulevard, northwest of Elysian Fields Drive, and south of the Vermilion River. The particular parcels being rezoned from commercial mixed to mixed-use neighborhood.
Got a motion by Councilman Bellard and a second by Councilman Conk. Any council discussion? Nope. Any public comment?
Yes, sir, we have one citizen assigned in, Terry Boye. Passing.
Okay.
That's the only speaker, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you so much. I didn't see any council discussion, so we good? Good, call the vote, please.
District 2? District 3?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes.
District 6?
Yes.
District 7? District 9? District 1?
Yes.
Motion to adopt is approved.
Okay, just a reminder, item 18 has been deferred till March 6th, so Jeremy, please move to item number 19.
Ordinance 18, 2018, an ordinance of the Lafayette City-Parish Council amending the fiscal year 1718 capital budget of the Lafayette City-Parish Consolidated Government by adjusting line items in the amount of $250,000 within the Lafayette Police Department.
Need a motion and a second. Motion by Councilman Boudreaux, second by Councilman Conk. Not seeing any council discussion. Public comment?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please call the roll.
District 3?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes.
District 6?
Yes.
District 7?
Yes.
District 9? District 1?
Yes?
District 2? Motion to adopt is approved. Ordinance 19, 2018, an ordinance of the Lafayette City-Parish Council amending the fiscal year 1718 capital budget of the Lafayette City-Parish Consolidated Government by adjusting line items in the amount of $35,000 within the Lafayette Police Department.
Got a motion by Councilman Terrio. We got a second by Councilman Castillo. And the cheap seats on that. Not seeing any council discussion. Any public comment?
No, sir.
Okay, please call the roll.
District 4?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes.
District 6?
Yes.
District 7?
Yes.
District 9?
Yes.
District 1?
Yes.
District 2?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
Motion to adopt is approved. Ordinance 21, 2018, an ordinance of the Lafayette City-Parish Council providing for the abandonment of a portion of a utility easement on Lot 3A of Howard's, having a municipal address of 4603 Johnston Street.
Got a motion by Councilman Bellard. Second by Councilman Boudreaux. Not seeing any council discussion. All right, public comment?
Yes, sir.
Please call the roll.
District 5?
Yes.
District 6?
Yes.
District 7?
Yes.
District 9?
Yes.
District 1?
Yes.
District 2?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
Motion to adopt is approved. Ordinance 22, 2018, an ordinance of the Lafayette City-Parish Council providing for the abandonment of a portion of the right-of-way for Silkwood Street and the granting of 2 utility servitudes on the property of Philip Gachassin, located in the 2000 block of West Saint Mary Boulevard.
Got a motion by Councilman Conk and a second by Mr. Nick Cook. Not seeing any council discussion. Any blue cards?
Naomi Dominique? Okay.
Okay. He passes. All right.
Other speakers?
Okay, please call the roll.
District 6?
Yes.
District 7?
Yes.
District 9? District 1?
Yes.
District 2?
Yes.
District 3? District 4?
Yes.
District 5?
Yes.
Motion to adopt is approved.
All right, moving to introductory ordinances. Ask for a motion and second to consider for global. Got a motion by Councilman Boudreaux, second by Councilman Bellard. Chairman, can you please read the following ordinances?
Ordinance 24, 2018, an ordinance of the Lafayette City-Parish Council authorizing the Lafayette City-Parish Consolidated Government to sell at public auction surplus vehicles, equipment, and other miscellaneous movable property which are no longer needed for public purposes as per the attached list auction. Ordinance 25, 2018, an ordinance of the Lafayette City-Parish Council authorizing the Lafayette City-Parish Consolidated Government to sell at an internet auction miscellaneous surplus LCG movable property which are no longer needed for public purposes as per the attached list auction. Ordinance 26, 2018, an ordinance of the Lafayette City-Parish Council authorizing Lafayette City-Parish Consolidated Government to sell 1 surplus CEIA portable magnetic static detector which is no longer needed for public purposes to Metrosons Incorporated for a total price of $12,995. Ordinance 27, 2018, an ordinance of the Lafayette City-Parish Council authorizing the Lafayette City-Parish Consolidated Government to sell at an internet auction miscellaneous surplus LCG movable property which are no longer needed for public purposes as per the attached list auction. Ordinance 28, 2018, an ordinance of the Lafayette City-Parish Council authorizing the Lafayette City-Parish Consolidated Government to sell at private sale certain surplus immovable property located at 164 Twin Oaks Boulevard, Lafayette, Louisiana, which is no longer needed for public purposes. Ordinance 29, 2018, an ordinance of the Lafayette City-Parish Council authorizing the filing of a grant application with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security for a fire prevention and safety grant for the Lafayette Fire Department. Ordinance 30, 2018, an ordinance of the Lafayette City-Parish Council declaring the building or structure located at 317 Johnston Street, Lafayette, Louisiana, owned by TIG Holdings, Incorporated, care of Michael J. Monroe, President, to be dilapidated and dangerous to the public welfare and ordering the condemnation of same.
Thank you so much. Is there any public comment on any of these? All right, can you please call the roll?
District 7?
Yes.
District 9? District 1?
Yes.
District 2?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 4?
Yes.
District 5? District 6?
Yes.
Motion to introduce in globo is approved.
Meeting adjourned. Everyone have a good evening and a safe trip home. Thank you.